All righty, everybody. Welcome back. Happy Skews Day to you. It is September 24th, 2024. I'm Trey. That's Mark. How you doing over there, Mark?
Good, man. We're talking about some of our one of our favorite topics: the prevalence of dicks in right-wing American politics.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, they're so
Yes.
horny, dude. So yeah, we're talking about some sex scandals when we get to the show. Before we get started, I wanted to a couple of stories I wanted to touch on. Ryan Routh, the alleged assassin who never got around to actually trying to kill Trump 2 weeks ago, last week or whatever. He apparently left a note in a box with a friend who confessed that it was an assassination attempt, which is not a very smart legal strategy. And if he failed, offered a $150,000 reward for anyone who wanted to finish the job.
Right.
So you got a MLM scam of assassinating presidential candidates going on now. So that's a fun new development.
So I saw people on the right talking about how it was unprofessional and inappropriate of the DOJ to have even released this because they were acting like this is Biden's DOJ tacitly offering a bounty on Trump's life. That's what they're doing because this guy's offering 150, and they're putting this offer of reward out there, because they're trying to bait people into doing it. Not, and to me, it's one of those things. Any lunatic who does some lunatic shit like this, there's always some kind of manifesto or something, right? And it's like people want that released, right? Generally, like if you refuse to release it, then that's a problem. Do you know what I'm saying? Like people would bitch about that. So you just relate, hey, this guy left this. This is more insight into this guy's mental state or whatever. But they're trying to spin it like the DOJ is offering their own bounty on Trump's life this way.
You ever see the movie The Jackal, the Bruce Willis movie?
Yes. Yeah.
About a guy hired to kill the first lady or something. I forget. But like he had to use a robot gun because if you want to get away from killing a high level, like doing a high level assassination, you can't just be there, right? You're not going to survive it. So I want to meet the person who would think you'd have any way to collect this $150,000, even if you survived
dude,
it.
Forget.
Yeah.
I'm about to say, forget surviving it. That's also my main thing. Is like, imagine seeing this and being like, I trust that guy to follow through with this money. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure this dude will come correct when the bill is due if I pull this off. Like that. No, who would believe that this guy would have the capacity to pay them? But I guess in their heads, it's like if you think that the DOJ is part of it, then they'll make sure you get your money. I suppose.
Sure.
That's how you gotta think like them.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's strange times. So speaking of strange times. Got a fun, darkly hilarious update on the. You remember that mass shooting a couple weeks ago where a guy just shot at a bunch of cars on a Kentucky freeway? Luckily, he shot 12 cars, wounded 5 people on Interstate 75 in eastern Kentucky.
I actually genuinely, not making a joke or anything, like I completely forgot that happened, but I do remember it now. But that's how you know it's like a sad state of affairs with this country and mass shootings and stuff, because that entered and left my mind almost immediately because of how many times we deal with shit like that. But yes, I do remember that guy. Yeah, that was in London, Kentucky, I think, which I used to work with a guy who was from there. And that's not like, it's like a little, town on I-75. So it's a wild place for something like that to happen.
Yeah, so luckily the guy didn't kill anybody except apparently himself. Guy named Joseph Couch. He shot these cars and kind of took to the hills as you do. And the police have been like doing this big manhunt. They had to shut down schools. Just something you live through in America now. Kids can't go to school for a week because some maniacs running around the woods with a gun, wanted to kill a bunch of people. And so the cops had kind of like given up on finding him. They're deciding instead we're going to pull back and just defend soft targets, I guess was their plan if they had one, probably just going on lunch. But enter a couple by the name of Fred and Sheila McCoy, who just took it upon themselves to find him. They called it a date night activity, days and nights streaming on YouTube, trying to get the $35,000 in reward money. And then they did what the cops didn't think to do and followed some buzzards, Trey.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, these are actual hill people here, dude. They know the tricks of the trade. They know the woods. They know the creatures. They know the fauna, the flora, how it all operates. Now, this is like this is what we get as like people, like backwoods people get more acclimated to the internet era and stuff like that. Is you get live streamed manhunt date nights like this from rednecks in Kentucky. And then, dude, the fact that it worked, that it paid off, that they hit pay dirt, dude, they had to be so pumped up. I bet I bet they wore each other out that night. I'd be so happy.
Because they were live streaming it, there actually is footage of them finding his body. They said, let me read here from the story describing the video. The couple said they saw vultures circling nearby, and they commented on a foul smell as they walked toward the vultures. Then Fred McCoy shouted, "I got him." Sheila replied, "Oh, my Lanta. Oh, my Lanta. Oh, gosh. Oh, gross." So turns out find the body.
Classic.
Yeah. So here's the kicker to this story. The YouTube channel is dedicated to a now defunct museum celebrating the feud between the Hatfield and McCoys, because Fred and Sheila McCoy are descendants of the Hatfield and McCoys. So the funny part of this story, after finding a guy the cops couldn't, is the McCoy clan is now celebrating over a century of making the Mr. Government Man look stupid and incompetent. So there we go.
This is apropos of almost nothing, but I was just in Ohio last week doing shows, and this lady came up from Eastern Kentucky or Southwestern Virginia, around there in West Virginia area, and she was one of the McCoys. Her last name was McCoy, and she's like, "Yeah, no, I'm like those McCoys." So I think that area there is just lousy with McCoy, and I presume also Hatfields, but definitely McCoys, I guess. They're still out here doing it, you know?
Yeah. I forget the details of the war between the two families. It was across state lines, right? So then the federal troops had to get involved because the governors and the county officials took each other's different clan sides and whatever. It's real hill people feud shit that. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's keep going. This is Weekly Skews. Producer Laura is with us doing the thing back there behind the scenes. Before we continue, I want to let y'all know about a few things. Of course, the usual. If you'd like to see me do stand-up comedy live and in person, and you should like to do that, go to TreyCrowder.com. Check out my upcoming tour dates. I'll be in Bristol, Tennessee, speaking of hill people this weekend, and then Atlanta, Georgia right after that, and then Missouri, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Wisconsin, Maryland, Philly, all over the place coming up in the near future. And then also into 2025. Got a lot of dates coming for y'all. Go to TreyCrowder.com. Also, if you enjoy this program and would like to show your support, you can do so by signing up on Patreon. You go to weeklyskews.com/more, or you can just go on Patreon and search for my name. Either way will work. $5 a month gets you access to full-length bonus episodes. This week, we got another Q&A coming up. Those are always fun. People ask Mark really smart questions. They want to get to the bottom too, and they ask me about my cats. And that's what we do. But also, when we're not doing a Q&A, we just cover other topics that happen in the interim between shows, or things we don't get to, or just things we want to talk about. If you like this show, you'll like that show because it's just this show, but more of it, and you get to ask us questions. So get some more Skews in your life. Sign up on Patreon. Please consider it. Now, as for the show tonight, as Mark alluded to up top, it's a wild week on the American right, and I do mean wild. Sex scandal after sex scandal, buddy. They're just must be that time of year, and it is. 'Tis the season because it's September of an election year, and so things start to come out. Filthy things, nasty things, dirty things. We're going to be talking about them all a little later, but first we start with the Daily Dumbass. Laura, graphic, please. Tonight's DD, people who won't denounce Hamas in the middle of denouncing Hamas. This is Louisiana Senator John Kennedy interviewing Maya Berry, the executive director of the Arab American Institute.
What time? You support Hamas, don't you? You support UNRWA and Hamas, don't you?
Sir,
Please.
I think it's exceptionally disappointing that you're looking at an Arab American witness before you and saying you support Hamas.
You know what's disappointing to me?
I do not support
you can't
Hamas.
Bring yourself
I do
to
not
say
support Hamas.
You don't
or
support UNRWA. You don't support Hamas. You don't.
I was very clear in my support for UNRWA.
Hezbollah, and you don't support Iran. You should hide your head in a bag.
Your time has expired.
So fuck this guy. Again, he's one of the people in the Senate I dislike the most, I think.
Yeah, he comes up a lot with his evil foghorn leghorn shit that he does.
Right. Which is, if you're familiar with how he talked 20 years ago, is not how he really sounds. I got a video I want to show a little bit about that. But truth is the first casualty in a war, right? I think most people are familiar with that expression, and like even in a so-called just war like World War II, you can be driven insane by the doublespeak and fucking bullshit. Like that's what Catch-22 was about. But like the rhetorical game he's playing here is trying to say that because she is complaining about the fact that UNRWA was defunded by the Biden administration. UNRWA is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, which had been providing aid to Palestinian refugees affected by the war, vaccinations for kids, food, other supplies, shit like that. And they got defunded after October 7th because Israel claimed that people that worked for UNRWA were involved in October 7th. There's been an internal investigation. I've seen no real proof of it. Anyway, whatever. He's trying to say because she thinks kids should get vaccinated and the American government should help pay for it, that she supports Hamas. Okay.
Right.
So the punchline to this was a hearing about hate crimes.
Yeah.
And so the context, the hearing was specifically about stemming the tide of hate crimes in America. And he's using it to try to jumpstart more hate crimes. This is in the context about, like, the reason they're having this hearing is in the 3-month period of 2023 after October 7th, hate crimes against Arab Americans and Jewish Americans increased significantly. And studies have been established that powerful politicians' words can embolden people to commit violent acts. So you use the hearing where they're trying to figure out how to stem the tide of hate crimes to use his own platform to try to jumpstart more of them. All right?
Right. Yeah, I don't know how this lady, and I've seen plenty of other clips from people testifying before Congress where I felt the same way. It's like my hat's really off to her because I don't know how you keep from flipping out at least a little bit in that scenario. Now, of course, I'm a white man, so I feel more entitled to flip out. But I just feel like also I got trash blood and everything, and I don't think I could sit there in that scenario because she's literally repeating the words, "I do not support Hamas," while he is like aggressively, yelling at her basically, "Why will you not say you don't support Hamas?" And it's just like, that would drive me insane. I'd call him a motherfucker. I'd be like, "Are you fucking, what the fuck do you want me to say? You don't understand the words." I go all Chris Tucker, "You don't understand the words that are coming out of my mouth." I'd lose my fucking mind. People that know better, because that's what, especially again, if you're coming from like a woman of color or whatever, that's exactly what they want you to do, is to lose your cool and to do that shit. But even knowing and understanding that, I'm still impressed with people that had the capacity to do so, because I would flip the fuck out on this dude if I was in this situation, because it's just, but luckily it seems like a lot of other people there, I'm sure plenty of people were like, "Oh, he's spitting," but clearly a lot of other people realized what he was doing. You can hear people booing and groaning and all that shit throughout. So, and this clip went viral and people are hating on it. So,
Right. And like, if you, I don't know if you, this next video clip has sorry, I'm going to tell you, Laura, is a YouTube clip that has a pre-roll ad. If you can cue it up so we can play it in a second. Because I want, like, the genre of people that bother me the most in American politics, not just in politics, but in general, are people that pretend to be stupider than they fucking are, right? And he's essentially doing a Larry the Cable Guy routine. Where he's I have no idea what's in his heart. I have no idea if he's really racist. But I do know that in real life, he went to Oxford, and he's very educated. And back in 2004, when he was a Democrat, this is what he sounded like if you got this video clip from 2004, Laura.
I'm a Democrat. I support Senator Kerry. I have endorsed Senator Kerry, as you have, as Chris has. He's the nominee of our party.
Okay.
Look, politicians are phonies. They have one persona for...
That's not...
line from that guy.
Yes, Dan Abrams of MSN. He used to be on NBC. I don't know what he's on there, but what I don't know what to call this. It's kind of like a redneck face thing he's doing because he wants to win elections in Louisiana.
I mean, look, to my ear, the voice by itself, it's less exaggerated or whatever, but not. There's still an element of it there, in my opinion, when you listen to him. But I mean, the unbridled lunacy, just the overall tone and approach of the persona is certainly incredibly different in that clip from 20 years ago. But I guess he learned somewhere along the way that there was only one way to, continue being a congressperson or whatever in Louisiana, and it was to pivot further and further into this shit. And so he does that. But yeah, no, I'm with people that act that all shucks it up. And I mean, well, here's the thing. I mean, I do a little bit of that. I all shucks it up every now and then.
Sure, but not like you don't. But like what they accuse Kamala Harris of doing when she's just code switching.
Right.
Like she's code switching. They accuse her of putting on a fake accent. This is a fake fucking accent. We have documented proof of it. That's not what when he goes home. That's what he sounds like. When he's in the Senate, this is what he says. It's like it's a very fucking fraudulent game to me to be playing, especially when we got footage of you because you were a public figure in 2004. So. But like, all they have this election cycle is fucking racism. And I've never seen I didn't think. Like, I literally would rather die than be doing this in 2024. What they're doing, it's so fucking cynical and depraved. Like, here's a headline from a speech Trump gave the other day. Trump says that if he loses, the Jewish people would have a lot to do with it. All right, he's saying if he loses, it's the Jews' fault.
I just don't get how this, because also they super back Israel, right? I mean, that's what, like, the juxtaposition of these two clips, right? Part of the reason this guy, John Kennedy, was going in on her for the Hamas stuff or whatever is because, like, Israel are the good guys, right? If you're Republicans, like, we got to back them at all costs because they're the ones fighting evil over there. That's what they say and think. And then their figurehead, their God Emperor, Trump, and not just him, but also the base, all of the MAGA world, they hold that belief, or at least, profess to, but then also it's pandering to them to just say, oh, it's the Jews, blame it on the Jews. And they'll talk shit about the Jews, but Israel rules. And I know this has come up before and you said the whole thing. It's like, well, see, the deal with them is fundamentalist Christians. It's something about the Bible. The Jews need to be in the promised land when Jesus comes back or something. So that's why Israel needs to stay a thing. But I bet Trump don't fucking know that.
No, but everything's transactional. He doesn't understand why 60-some% of American Jewish people, so you tend to vote Democratic. So like he's saying because I'm helping quote unquote your people. Right. I want them to be free to kill as many people as possible. Then you should support me. And
I
you're
should
bad
be winning
if you
in
don't
the
support
polls
me.
with you, and the fact that I'm not means that you guys suck, and this will all be your fault when the world ends when I'm not elected. Right? Yeah.
Right. And it's like Jewish voters are 2% of the American electorate. So whoever wins, it's blame it on them. It's insanely. It's all Nazi shit, dude. It's going to be fifth column Nazi shit. It's this is absolutely insane. And while he's doing this, he's running around using a word called the word remigration at a lot of his rallies, talking about forcing people out of the country back to whatever the countries of origins are. Now, this is a word that does not clock to most of us, but Nazis around the world know it because they use it constantly. It's their counter plan to what they call the Great Replacement theory. It's you're trying to replace us with people from the global South. We're going to, ship them back and remake their their counter to the Jewish cabal's Great Replacement theory move or whatever. The fact he's using this word at the same time we're saying that his election loss will be the fault of Jewish people is it's all incredibly dark shit.
Right, but so it's the word remigration just means taking immigrants and putting them back, right? That's what it means. You send them back. That's what we're doing. Yeah. And they've been hollering about sending them back for a long time. But and other people have noted and pointed out that word remigration is kind of a rallying cry, a fundamental philosophical tenet of a lot of Nazi white nationalist groups around the world, right? That's they holler, no, this is what needs to happen. Remigration, and the idea that Trump is just using an innocent word that happens to also be used a lot by Nazis is, bullshit. It's no, there's right. It's a dog, it's a dog whistle.
Do the rest of us walk around saying remigration all the time?
Right.
I've only ever heard it used by fucking Nazis. All right.
Right.
So this guy, let me quote here from a guy named Martin Sellner, who's the leader of the Austrian chapter of Generation Identity, a pan-European white supremacist network. He tweeted this in his native German. #remigration has had a massive conceptual career. Born in France, popularized in German-speaking countries, and now the term of the hour from Sweden to the USA. So, what happens what you want to do when you're running for major office in America is to use weird buzzwords the rest of us don't clock, but make Nazis extremely horny.
Right. Yeah,
And
to me, I feel like if I was a public figure on this level and I said something, and then a prominent Nazi and head of a Nazi group was like, "This guy gets it. He's saying our thing." Like that would be bothersome to me.
Yes.
I would try to avoid doing that. It's a long running thing on the show. Try to live your life in such a way that you avoid having a Hitler section on your Wikipedia page or comments about Hitler. And this feels like that's, part of that idea. But Trump's playing right into it.
Yeah, I mean, like back when I did stand up, I like had a lot of, I did a lot of like irony drunk shit. And I had jokes that I stopped doing because I figured out that people were laughing for the wrong fucking reason. Mm-hmm. Do you understand what I'm saying? And like, so, but all this is happening in the same context where like JD is saying that, spreading this lie that like, for example, the immigrants bring disease. Like he's saying that like HIV and AIDS is up like a lot since the Haitians arrived in Springfield, which is not true. The health department's saying it's not true. It doesn't matter. He's saying that he's describing people that are here legally as illegals. They need to get out of the country. And this like Nazi fucking like pandering shit is getting so unsubtle that I don't know how they like can escape it. Mike Lindell this week is promoting a My Pillow sale, where these pillows are on sale for $14.88. Okay, 14 is the 14.
Oh my God, are you serious? Yeah, yes. I know what that means. Yeah.
88 is the Hitler number. It's H is the 8th letter of the alphabet, so 88 is Heil Hitler.
Heil Hitler, yeah, right.
But what's the point of your code when everybody knows your fucking code?
It's a good point, right? Yeah, we all know it at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. But also, you brought up Springfield just as a quick side note. I was in Ohio doing shows this past weekend. They were all great. Thanks to y'all who came out. On Saturday, me and Travis Irvine, friend of the show, denizen of the Skewers, he was opening for me. We went to Springfield on Saturday, spent the day in Springfield. They had the annual Mustard Festival with weenie dog races and all this stuff. And it was a almost comically charming slice of Americana. It was not in any way a like immigrant hellhole or whatever that was just overran by these, vicious leeches from, south of the border in the Caribbean or whatnot. And Travis, actually, he does Man on the Street stuff for Last Podcast Network, and he talked to a bunch of people at the Mustard Festival, and even people who were like clearly Republicans who like balked at talking shit about J.D. Vance. Even those people, every one of them, they're all from Springfield, and they all express some version of like, we are disgusted and disappointed at what has been said about our community over the past couple of weeks because none of it is true. So even like middle-aged white conservative people are like, it's just a shame that this misinformation has gotten out there and people think these things about our town because it's nothing like that is happened. None of that's the case. And it was, a very charming little America, big to me because it's like 80,000 people or whatever, which is a fucking metropolis if you're from Clay County, but still charming American Midwestern town. And I just wanted to report back on that front. I saw no dogs getting eaten other than hot dogs at the Mustard Festival, of course. But generally speaking, no dogs getting eaten. We went to the Haitian restaurant in town. It was packed, by the way, line out the door. People are showing up to support, and the food was very good. So, yeah, had a good time in Springfield, just so y'all know. That's my field piece for the week, delivered right here into the camera.
We talked about, was it Eagle Pass, Texas, about how a bunch of, like, weird lies had, like, really just broken down the social fabric in that town. Outsiders coming in, people coming there with guns to like shoot migrants and shit. And then you got like, Springfield. Like eventually, it's going to come to like every town. And I wonder when Americans are going to like think like, well, obviously the stuff I see them say on my screen about another town is true, but when they say about my town, I walked around outside yesterday and it was a lie. But like, me
and Corey and Drew were just talking about that earlier on Well Read today about that exact thing, but also because we're talking about public schools and shit and the demonization of public schools. And I'm doing a bit right now that has to do with like, I went to public school. This shit takes off in rural America. I'm from rural America. I went to public school. I don't understand how this gets any traction because my school couldn't have been less woke. And then I make a bunch of jokes about how not woke my public school was. But it's just that they're like, no, our school's a good God-fearing public school or whatever. But it's those public schools out in California or Colorado where that's the ones where they're confiscating little boys' dicks or giving kids litter boxes to piss in. It's happening there, but not here, obviously. And the same thing with the Springfields of the world. If you're from Springfield and you're hardcore Republican, you're like, this is ridiculous. Why would anybody believe this? But let them say it about another community and you'll be like, it's a damn shame that that's happening. But that's not news to any of us, right? We've known for a while that a lot of these people, they needed to impact them on a personal level before they can have any kind of real empathy for it or recontextualize it. And I know you said eventually every American community will be affected by this type of stuff. But I don't know. There's a lot of them out there. It would take a long, long time to smack that type of sense into people, I think. But it's a shame that that's what it takes. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, every American city is a crime. I saw somebody like being like, is it safe to walk from like West 46th Street in New York to like whatever, like somewhere in Times Square? It's higher. Times Square is higher than that, but like, you know, and it was like, buddy, if you're scared to walk through the most heavily policed tourist destination in America at 7 p.m. at night, you should never leave your house.
See, right. But the thing about that is, and I think this is related to why that particular disinformation campaign or piece of propaganda, this is why it's so effective, is because I know, I mean, you know, you're from a small town too, but I know, like, even before it got framed the way it is now with this narrative about evil migrants and all that, like, people in small towns are just afraid of cities, of being like my Mima, who hated Donald Trump and voted Democrat her whole life. Anytime I talked to her on the phone, she was like, you know, don't step on a heroin needle on your way to the CVS or whatever. Like, she thought I was going to get robbed at knife point all the time, because it's just like the Avett Brothers had a song, "Murder and Don't Go Get Murdered in the City." It's like, it's just a thing. Like, cities are scary, and I'm saying they've played right into that with this whole immigrant thing, and that's part of the reason it works so well, is because a lot of small town people are scared of big. I still have some of that in me, honestly. Sometimes I get nervous for no good reason if I'm in an unfamiliar part of a big city, because it's just part of who I am. So they, you know, they know these things, and they play, you know, they push those buttons and they pull those strings, knowing that that's part of why it'll be effective. And it's tough. All right, but there's some good news though. They're huge pieces of shit. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so there's been a bunch of like weird sex scandals in the past few days. For example, we're not even going to get to this one, but one of the guys in charge of Project 2025 has apparently been sending weird DMs to teenagers. I think so far they're all legal age, 18 or whatever, the college freshmen, but like still don't be doing that.
Right.
So, but
doing a Chris D'Elia type thing. Yeah. Where it's like, you know, it's like,
allegedly.
I'll sext you. Right. Yeah. Allegedly. The same allegations. Like, oh, you're 18, like, or you're 17. I can't do that. But, you know, when's your birthday? I'll send you my dick then.
Right, yeah. So there was like a 24-hour period on Thursday where like all this shit was going on. It must have been like what QAnon people thought the storm was going to be like, except for like libs. It's just so, you know, no tribunals and executions, but like just everybody's dirt being dropped. The ones we're not going to get in depth about, there's a new court filing related to like stuff around Matt Gaetz, where this guy was trying to sue someone for defamation, didn't pay his lawyers. The lawyers introduced a bunch of stuff in there. It turns out Matt Gaetz texted this guy who used to be his friend 30 times a day of a sex party that a 17-year-old was at. Same 17-year-old is accused of trafficking. So that's probably going to end up being at least embarrassing for him. Here's a fun one. Corey DeAngelis, who's a guy, a conservative education reform advocate who's espoused anti-gay sentiments, was exposed for his involvement in gay porn. He was a senior fellow for the American Federation for Children, which is like Betsy DeVos's like anti-public school outfit. He's got a bunch of, you know, he'd been retweeted a bunch of times by your favorite governor from Tennessee, Bill Lee. But apparently he used to perform in gay adult films under the pseudonym Seth Rose, including a scene in which he won a group masturbation contest. Which my question with this is, like, doesn't everyone win a group masturbation contest?
Well, it depends. Is it a race to the finish, or is it an outlast situation? I can see that going
I think it's a
either way.
race. I think it's a race like you know, fraternity hazing used to do. You know,
sure.
like So then there was like the Olivia Nuzzi and RFK thing, which is just like fucking mind-blowingly stupid. She's a reporter, got suspended from her job from New York Magazine for, I guess, sending RFK Jr. nudes. Her problem was that he's 70 years old and married to Cheryl Hines. Unfortunately for her, he's stupid enough to brag about getting the nudes.
Right.
Her editors heard about it, confronted her. She denied it. So they were like, well, I guess the moral of the story is don't trust the severed
Right.
the guy who cuts a whale's head off with a chainsaw with your nudes.
I was about to say, like, he's clearly not the best at keeping secrets, you know,
Right.
like, or keeping things covered up. So it seems like an odd choice. But some people, and, you know, I didn't fact check these. They could have been altered, I guess, digitally. But I saw a bunch of screenshots from her Twitter over the years, tweets she made like years and years ago. Apparently she's got a type because she had tweeted about how Mitt Romney was just sexy as fuck, and Rick Perry just tearing her up with those steely eyes and all that, you know, papaw energy he had or whatever. But yeah, I guess she likes rich old white crazy dudes, I guess.
Yeah, I mean her fiance until all this stuff happened was 20 years older than her, so she definitely has a type. If anybody out there is old, rich, and white. So, but now for the funny political part of this is RFK Jr. is now mounting a weird PR disinformation campaign, I guess, to try to save his marriage. He basically said that he had blocked her, but she kept creating new emails and phone numbers to send him nudes. Like, oh no, don't stop sending me the nudes. So,
Dude, he's got to have how many people you think is on his full-time round-the-clock staff of just like PR damage control stuff or whatever? Do you know what I mean? There's no way there's got to be a team assigned to just this, and some of those people had to be pulled off of whale skull duty who were previously on bear corpse duty, and there's still somebody working the brainworm thing, you know. Like, it's got to be wild to work for this guy, man.
it's like Lucy in the Chocolate Factory with dumb shit,
Right?
Yeah,
With disconcerting, insane, dumb things. Yes.
So now he's threatening to sue her for harassing him by sending him nudes. So, like, what you definitely want to do when you're a serial adulterer like RFK Jr. is open yourself up to discovery, where her lawyers will be able to get access to all your texts and stuff. So that's just brilliant stuff. Brilliant strategy being executed there. Way to go, sir. So let's get to Mark Robinson, because this is the one with a lot of the meat on the bone. And I think it actually tells a story both about our politics and media, and offers some insights into the heavily online world of the American right wing. Let's start with this video from Fox News trying to describe what had happened here.
According to CNN, Robinson, the Republican nominee for governor, quote, made a series of inflammatory comments on a pornography website's message board more than a decade ago, in which he referred to himself as a black Nazi and expressed support for reinstating slavery. CNN reports that its review of archived messages also revealed that despite his publicly conservative stance on transgender rights, in his earlier online comments, Robinson said he enjoyed watching transgender pornography and that he also referred to himself as a perv. Robinson denies making the comments and issued this response on social media.
All right, you got it.
Maybe it's just me, but I feel like those were presented in reverse order. Meaning, do you know what I mean? It like feels like it should have started with, he commented, "I'm a bit of a perv," and then followed up with, he liked transgender pornography even though he's openly transphobic. And then I personally would have closed with, this dude said I'm a black Nazi who thinks slavery should be a thing again, and I'd like to own some myself. I mean, maybe that's just me. Of course, you know, Fox News is demographic. I get why you would want to switch those things. It's totally opposite in their brains. But yeah, it's this guy, man. He's the gift that keeps on giving. If you like crazy shit.
I want to think about, like, forget what he was saying for a second.
Okay.
You're on a porn message board,
Bro.
and you're talking politics. Even regardless of what you're saying, that's insane behavior. To also add it to the fact that you want to reinstate slavery and you're saying I'm a black Nazi. It's several degrees of crazy. You imagine you're just a guy who's just trying to, do your business on a porn site, and you're being subjected to these rants.
Anybody that, no offense to anybody out here who engages, because I mean, to be fair, I think Yelp reviews are even kind of weird, but people that like comment on porn videos or porn sites have always blown my mind. Like somebody because dude, like you said, you're doing your business, you get in, you leave in shame as quickly as possible. Try to pretend none of it ever happened. That's how I am. But these people are on here like, writing out full treatises on the the ins and outs, giving critiques on it, like they're Peter Travers writing for Rolling Stone or whatever. It's wild.
I guess if you're a fan, you want like if you're think you're one of the actors, you're like, it's nice to hear a compliment, and maybe have a good
I guess
note
you're
on their
right.
work. Yeah.
If you look at it as like an art form, a genre of film or whatever, then sure, why not offer some critique? But yeah, I've always thought just that by itself is wild. When someone is doing that and is saying slavery should come back, by the way, that's a particular degree of crazy motherfucker, especially when you find out it's a black guy doing it.
I sort of like understand why they ranked the newsworthiness of the comments that way, right? Because the Nazi stuff is known about him. Like we've reached a point in American politics where like we talked about like this in the dumbass segment where like being a Nazi is kind of fine now.
Right. No, you're right. And that's what I was saying about how for Fox News' demographic, I kind of get it because that's part of what I alluded to this in the video I made about this today, but it's like, I say I alluded. I straight up said, like, if the comments were just limited to like the Nazi pro-slavery shit, it'd probably be fine. But all this like dirty butthole transgender porno stuff, like that's where they draw the line. Because it's like they're like, listen, I can excuse Holocaust denial, okay, sure. but openly talking about your threesomes with your wife's sister on a transgender porn video comments, whatever, it's like that's a bridge too far for me.
Well, that's the thing is like the news didn't cover. We're gonna get to that, but the news didn't cover the threesomes with his wife's sister part, right?
I know you had to go and look it up. I know because as soon as I saw the CNN article, I was like, okay, well, I want to see the rest of these things. Though. You know what I mean? They're like, we can't even report on some of this stuff, and I was like, I want to see that stuff. So I went and started like. Looking on Twitter and trying to go. You had to send me most of it. Most of it I saw was from you. So thanks for doing the work.
it's fascinating what they choose to not cover. And I wanted to get to that because if you just follow the news of this, you don't really get the full. You don't really get the full awfulness of the shit he was up to if you just because like they find it too gross to report on. But like I feel like Robinson's problem is like being a Nazi's fine, being a pervert's fine. What you can't be is a Nazi pervert. That's somehow a bridge too far. You can't put the chocolate and the peanut butter together or whatever. So what he had done here is basically the level of stupidity. Forget the evil, the various kinds of evil and the weird pervert stuff. Not to look at it like I'm not referring to the transgender porn stuff, although it's weird. Like the way he described it was very weird, and like the way he's objectifying trans people's bodies while also wanting to put them in prison is very. Whatever, but like his OPSEC was terrible. He used the username Mini Soldier, which he spelled MINISOLDR, right? And he used it everywhere, all right, all over the internet. And he didn't bother changing. He used his real email address, and his account name was Mark Robinson on the fucking on the website. Like he had not hidden this at all. And
one thing I'll say about this dude is, man, you were talking earlier about how you can't stand when people fake shit. They pander in that way by faking things. There's no authenticity at all, and they're just grifting or whatever. It's like one thing you gotta say for this dude. And look, I know it's like under no circumstances do you have to hand it to Mark Robinson. I'm not saying that, but like he clearly is a full-blown lunatic who has felt this way about a lot of this shit for a really long time. You know what? Like some of them you look at and you're like, are they grifting or are they serious? And you go back and forth on which one is worse, which one is the worst thing to be. But he clearly is the real deal as far as all that goes, because he's been doing this shit since at least 2008, so he's wild.
Yeah. So the other stuff he said, I'm not in the KKK, but only because they don't let blacks join, which might be a clue to you that you shouldn't support the organization. What we actually said about slavery was, quote, slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring it back. I certainly would buy a few. And I just want to remind people, like, while Trump's pretending that he never supported this guy or whatever, he's been running around North Carolina with him for like a year. He endorsed him in the primary. Right. And all this stuff has been out there about, a lot of this stuff has been out there about him before. He used to put it on a porn site. Here's Trump talking about, well, this is a few seconds of him talking about Mark Robinson.
Mark Robinson, he's out there, he's fighting.
A very good man.
This is Martin Luther King on steroids. I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King times 2. I think he's going to go down as one of the great leaders.
So what's particularly funny about that, Mark, is correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of these comments they unearthed, I believe, and excuse me for this, I'm quoting the man, in one of these comments from him, he referred to MLK, I believe, as Martin Lucifer Coon. Did you see that one? Yeah, right.
Yes,
So that makes it particularly ironic.
And a post on a porn site about how they should take down MLK's statue in the National Mall.
Right. Right.
So the thing is, like, Martin Luther King appears to be the only black person that they know about. It's very fucking weird. Well, him and Kanye. And the thing about the slavery comments is, like, weirdly enough, this is obviously a pure coincidence, not a sickness in this fucking political movement. This wouldn't be the first time just last week that an elected Republican made headlines for wishing he could own slaves. Minnesota Representative Jeff Dotseth, Republican from Kettle River, allegedly mused that he would own slaves if it were allowed today and called his then stepson Kuta Kinte. He also allegedly kicked and punched the family's 14-year-old dog. So just like a bunch of fucking winners running around out there. It's like, I don't really know what's going on with these people, but like they think it's cool to kill dogs. They want to bring back slavery.
It's because it's part of the whole like Trump cancer that's infected the American right. And the thing is, like, the stuff has always been there, but how he's emboldened them to be as crazy as they've always been, or to be crazy out loud. And people have talked about that to death for years. But like the whole owning slaves thing, bro. You think Elon Musk wouldn't own slaves if he could, or even Jeff Bezos wouldn't own slaves if he could, or so many, like, of course they would, but it's like they used to have the good sense to pretend otherwise, and they don't anymore. And they always had people that didn't have the good sense to pretend otherwise, but they weren't front runners in major elections for the party. Do you know what I mean? Until Donald Trump. Now they're the face of American conservatism. People that don't have the good sense to not be insane out loud. And, that's all Donald Trump. Like, he did that.
The kooks and grifters used to be evenly distributed around American politics. And I think what they've done is they unify them all along with, like, the authoritarians all under the Republican banner. It used to be like, okay, you get some sort of, like, Democratic con artist. You'd have a sane, upstanding Republican who just has shitty views run against him, and the system would sort itself out outside of like Bob Menendez in Jersey or whatever. Now it's like if you're a person who wants to vote conservative, Mark Robinson's going to win the primary. Where the fuck do you put your vote?
Right.
You know, like you want to be like, well, you got to vote. Sorry, but you got to eat what you consider a shit sandwich and vote for Democratic candidates for a few cycles until they get sane again. But they're just not going to do that. So we're just trapped in this fucking hell. So I mentioned that Robinson listed his full name on his profile in Nude Africa, as well as the email address he'd used on numerous websites across the internet for decades, and also used M. Mini Soldier everywhere. But the next craziest part of this, we'll skip that first image, Laura, is one of the way they figured out it was him is because he kept going on rants on his main social media about how he found HECKUVA unfunny. Like... So you compare the language here, like on Mini Soldier, he would say, I don't give two shakes. And then on his main social media, he would say, we don't give two shakes. He would use this expression that I've never heard anyone else on the planet use called gag a maggot on both as Mini Soldier on Nude Africa and also on his main social media. He'd also call people dunderheads. He called HECKUVA girl a dunderhead with a space between the words, just like he did. So if you compare the language here, it's clear, like any sort of profile would be like, yeah, this is the same motherfucker. So just like... Maybe don't rant about a 21-year-old girl's sexuality and her online presence as if it matters politically. Like, just like you can just stay out of it. Maybe you won't get caught, for being a weird perv on a porn forum. As far as any of this stuff that's like materially like close to criminal, he posts this weird confession about describing his own sexual arousal as an adult from the memory of secretly peeping on women in a public gym shower as a 14-year-old. And he said, I sat there for about an hour and watched as several girls came in and showered, he wrote on Nude Africa. I went peeping in the next morning, but after that, I went back. The ladder was locked. The two times were the only times I got to do it. Memories. So he's like enjoying the memory of, peeping in a women's shower.
So this is kind of what I'm saying. It's like, very famously or infamously, I guess, that exact thing is a huge set piece or scene in the 80s classic sex comedy Porky's, right? They do that. They do that exact thing. But it's like people in 2024 are supposed to acknowledge, like, yeah, we ought not done that. Or it's like, or people bring up that scene and they're like, yeah, that's, love that. That's regrettable. But they're not doing that anymore. They're just like, Yeah, that's when
Right.
that's when America was great. That's when
Right.
that's the way things are supposed to be. We need to get back to that, and that's the difference,
Yeah. It's like it's one of those things where like if you've been like if you told me we're at a bar, like, yeah, one time I peeped in the shower when I was 14, I'd be like, well, that's as long as you recognize you should still be doing it. Like it's
Right.
like
You're a
it's like,
14-year-old, right?
He's not doing that. He's like, I wish I could still do it.
I wish I
It's
could
like-
still do it. Yeah, right.
Right. So like as Trey said, CNN. Let me quote here from CNN. CNN is reporting only a small portions of Robinson's comments on the website, given their graphic nature. I don't know why they made this choice. Because like you could also just have a link if you'd like to read the full content. Click through here if you're an adult, right? Confirm you're 18. It reminded me like when I worked at the newspaper back in Dallas. Like we had one of these stupid meetings where it's like, how can we get more traffic to the website? And like I used to go read Smoking Gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they would post like primary source documents. I'm like, we get a hold of police affidavits all the time. They're pretty interesting reads. I know we can't print stuff in a family newspaper because we're owned by Disney or McLaren. We got sold so many times I can't remember. You don't want to be, but like if a person, a consenting adult, wants to read it, we're not talking about delivering it to somebody's kitchen breakfast table. We're talking about the website where they can click through and they want to read it. And then remember when Terrell Owens overdosed on drugs and he played for the Cowboys? It was a big deal. We finally did that and it went viral and they took credit for it instead of being like, oh, AG, that was a good idea. Anyway, But I don't understand why CNN wouldn't do this, make it a way for people to access it. They're just being prudes about like stuff that anyone could easily find on the internet. But it opened the floodgates where everyone else was able to easily find this shit, including he posted book recommendations on Nude Africa. Like, let me quote here from one of them. Quote, Mein Kampf is a good read. It's very informative and not at all what I thought it would be. It's a real eye-opener. All right? So some enterprising person found Mini Soldier as a username on a forum called Ultimate Soldier, where they posted photos of his Nazi Waffen SS doll collection. If you got this photo, here's Mark Robinson posting pictures of his Nazi dolls. Why do you have Nazi dolls?
All right. How big are those dolls? Was this a...
I don't know if they're... There's nothing for scale. I'm assuming they're like, like a G.I. Joe doll size, but I guess they could be full-size mannequins. There's no way to tell.
That would be truly insane right there. He's got a garage full of like full-size lifelike Nazi dolls, but I mean, I wouldn't put anything past this guy. But
right.
Yeah.
The Daily Beast was fairly quickly able to realize that he used the same email that he used on all these different forums to sign up for accounts on Duolingo to sign up for German lessons. Which is not at all, would not be,
right.
Fine
indicting. On its own.
Except, it makes you wonder if he wants to read Mein Kampf in the original German just to get the full flavor of it.
Right. Now, dude, when you're praising Mein Kampf, which is the most important part, but if you're praising Mein Kampf and also collecting Nazi dolls, then signing up for German on Duolingo becomes a red flag.
Right. So, getting back to the stuff CNN didn't report. Here's a quote that's not too gross. Well, it's morally gross, but not too vulgar. Fellas, let your girl think she is in control and you can do what you want. I've been married 18 years and I've been fucking whoever I want when I want, including my wife's fine ass sister who does threesomes with me and another girl we know. We both love that. Here we go. Here's where I got to do a content
Here we go,
warning.
Mark. Let's go.
Yeah. We both love that ass to mouth thing, and there is nothing like having your balls sucked and asshole licked while deep in some pussy. All right.
Sure. Now, honestly, I would never read comments on a porn site because, again, that's not what I'm there for. Mm-hmm. But if you get deep into the comments on a porn site, that's some penthouse forum shit. That's pretty par for the course.
That's the question. That's the question here is if he's either way, he's an awful person. Like he's doing this stuff behind his wife's back, unless she's into this stuff too, right? But he's lying on the internet, saying he's behind her back. So I don't know whether she's writing it with him or whatever. But it becomes whether it's like, is this just pure fantasy or is he really doing this shit? Because if he really
but again, but even if it is like pure fantasy, I'm saying even if it is pure fantasy, you assume it's pure fantasy in that type of context, but also it's like it's kind of par for the course for where we all are, i.e. the comment section of a porn site or whatever. Mm-hmm. But when that same dude then veers off into a diatribe about how Hitler was right and slavery was cool or whatever, that's when it's like, well, this dude's a fucking even more of a lunatic. You know what I mean? Like it's just, and when you put it all together and then add on top of it that he is the Republican nominee for the governor of North Carolina.
He won a primary.
Really,
he won a contested primary. The Republican voters chose him. They thought, that's my guy.
That's when it all really becomes a problem, which is why we're even talking about it, obviously. But yeah.
We're usually R-rated, not X, right? But I kind of feel like people should know who they might be voting for if they live in North Carolina, right? All right, so I'm going to I'll do a little censorship here. We're not putting this on the screen because it's like, had me another hot morning with the wife's sister. She brought along her laptop, and this time we watched some vids here on Nude Africa. The one that really got us hot was called Wet Anal. That vid got her soaking wet, and y'all know what I did, right? That, Jesus Christ, I need a shower.
Yeah, keep going, Mark. You're doing great.
That ass was wet, slick, and good and pissy, and I licked and sucked that pussy and asshole till my face was covered with her funky juices. He talks about having sex with her dookie shoot, which is like,
dookie shoot.
Okay, there's a lot of pee and poop play in here. I don't want to read it. I don't want to read anymore. He loves peeing on poop.
All that.
Okay.
Loves it all.
So again, Northeast is a fantasy. Either way, I think I know what's going to happen. His wife's going to pray with him. They'll talk about it at church, and then she'll forgive him. Right? I know how this goes. But like to the point in this matter is, it's insanely frustrating that the Nazi stuff wasn't disqualifying for a ton of people. Neither was the horrible sex opinions. But being honest about his sex opinions in a way that's not illegal is mean to his wife, but doesn't involve anybody other than his wife's sister. Like, I have no idea why this is the stuff that really affects American politics, but it does. Right. Here's a clip from CNN where sex sells, baby. I don't know what to tell you.
Turns out there are a lot of stories people talk about, and then they really fall flat. People aren't interested in them. This is a story people are really interested in. Google searches for Mark Robinson since that K-File story broke yesterday versus the prior 24 hours. Nationally, searches for Mark Robinson up 8,540%. My goodness gracious. How about in the great state of North Carolina? Up by more than 4,000%, despite the fact that they were Googling him plenty before. The bottom line is a lot of interest in this.
So, if you can say you're a Nazi and that slavery wasn't that bad, but you got to say it at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, not on a porn forum, is essentially what we're learning here. All right?
Yeah. And also, I just want to say, like, if in the future we're still doing the show and it comes out that some prominent Democrat politician was leaving comments on a porn site, not about Nazis or slavery hitting or nothing, but purely just about like, ooh, I love pee and poop. God, it's filthy and nasty and I love it or whatever. And I say like, hey, I'm fine with that. It's not hypocritical because like, hey, none of this is about king shaming. It's like we said before, it only matters really, him being super into transgender porn only really matters at all because he calls transgender people filth and says that they should have to use the bathroom outside like the animals that they are. So when you are a person like this who publicly espouses these beliefs and represents these things, then this shit matters. It makes you a hypocritical piece of shit. If you just like typing out fantasies about your sister-in-law's, piss smell or whatever, do you, as far as I'm concerned. But it's when you put it all together that it becomes a problem.
Obviously, I don't care about the kink. Like the part that's relevant here is like the hypocrisy you described, but also is part of a political movement which wants to ban no-fault divorce. All right. So he wants to have a legal regime in place where his wife would not be able to divorce him if she found out all this stuff. That's the part that's pertinent here. So like. Also, I'm just enjoying his downfall. I'm enjoying this asshole being embarrassed. I'm just being honest with you. A little Schadenfreude. There's a German word you should know, Mark. Schadenfreude. But it's also important to understand, like, this stuff isn't, like, incidental. And this is why the fucking weird thing caught on so much. Like, this is a perfect example of it. If you want to understand modern American conservatives, especially the chunk that spend a huge amount of time online, Mark Robinson spent a ton of time online. He posted when he wasn't posting on Nude Africa, he was all over Facebook posting Nazi shit. He was all over Twitter posting Nazi shit. He's been doing this, like Trey said, since like the internet was invented. So the American rights basically comes down to two kinds of guys. All right, you got the guys who think the porn I'm addicted to is good, and the government should force women to take care of my needs in that particular fashion, versus the guys who think the porn I'm addicted to is bad and the government should make it illegal. That's basically the two kinds of guys that make up this whole fucking world. And Robinson's problem was he was pretending to be the latter type of guy when he was, in fact, the first kind of guy. So they're either mad that something made them horny, or mad they're horny and no one will help them out about it. Those are the two kinds of guys. And they're so close to conquering America. At which point they'll have a civil war between themselves, whether or not marriage is only between a man and a woman, or whether Mark Robbins should be able to marry his wife's sister also.
Right. And don't you think that a lot, and I mean, I think this motherfucker would be crazy in almost any version of society, it seems to me like, but don't you think that just so much that, I know this is not a groundbreaking comment, but like so much of this is just like cultural, societal repression, right? Christian conservative repression and that type of thing. Like the fact that they're even led to feel that they should be ashamed of these things, and it's repressed for years and years. And it makes it like, you know, the South always like leads the country in transgender porn searches or things of that nature every time, all the time. All these secretly gay, incredibly homophobic Republican politicians. It's all like repression, right?
I guess he's like, maybe he's self-hating. Maybe that's some of all this stuff. Maybe he feels guilt. Maybe he feels, you know, hates himself for the color of his skin. He hates himself for his sexual proclivities, and so his public stance is just about hating everything he has in private. I don't know, but I'm not here to psychoanalyze the guy. Right. But like, it doesn't really matter. The point is, he should not be governor of fucking. He should not be this close to being governor of a fucking state. And apparently, everyone like the real story here, and I wish we would get to the bottom of it, is who fucking clued CNN, because it didn't feel like if it was from the Dems who'd found it, it would have come sooner, or after it was too late for him to drop out. The fact this story dropped the last day it was possible for him to drop out, hours before he could have, leads me to think it was Republicans who wanted him off the ballot because afraid he's going to drag down Trump and make him lose North Carolina, right? That's just guessing, but like no other context makes sense unless CNN just happened to discover it the morning of the day he could drop out. But the fallout from this was pretty swift. His entire campaign team quit except for 3 people. He's down to 3 campaign staffers. The Republican Governors Association just announced they pulled all funding for ads from his race. Donald Trump has stayed real quiet. Robinson was told to stay away from a Trump rally in North Carolina the other day. As far as what Robinson's been saying, he put out a video before the story dropped denying it, even though no one knew what he was denying. He called it lies from the Josh Stein campaign, the guy he's running against for North Carolina governor, even though, like I said, it didn't make sense for Stein to drop it with that timing. He says he's going to sue CNN, even though they got him dead to the rights. They got the goods on him. And then he said, quote, "There's not a man alive that's never looked at porn or did something stupid on porn because we're men. That's what men do." And I'm here to say, I've never commented on a porn video at all, much less said Hitler was right.
Praise Mein Kampf on one.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like, no, but they do that a lot with that type of thing where it's like
locker room talk.
Right. Yeah. Locker room talker. They're like, well, look, we all know we're super racist in private, right? So I got caught doing it. It's like, no, but we're not all though, you know, or like, look, we all commit felonies. So Trump got cut, you know, like that type of thing. It's like, no, that's not actually true. Yeah. This is a version of that.
The funniest one to me is like, so a bunch of his supporters who were experts in like information technology and computer stuff offered to help him find the real mini soldier. And he was like, nah, don't worry about it.
It's fine. I got it under control. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about all. We don't need to dig any further into this.
He also said he gave an interview when he got on CNN to try to with the reporter who uncovered the story and was talking to him about it. And said, obviously this is all AI, which tech nerd. We was reading some tech nerds. I'm not a tech guy. I don't understand it. I would think maybe there's a possible way to back install comments on a website. Apparently, this guy was like, nope. The way this works is like this comment has been there since 2013 or whatever. This is not. There's no way to do this. The reality here, this is the way this is a massive indictment of Democrats is they hadn't found this until now, at least until now. This all stuff is out there very public on the internet. Anybody who looked, the minute somebody looked for Mini Soldier or Mark Robinson's email address, all this stuff was found. All these porn comments. He had an account on Ashley Madison. We're not even going to get to that. And then once that happened, reporters like, I wonder who else who wasn't famous in 2015 during the Ashley Madison hack has since gotten famous. We should check. Chris Rufo's on there. One of Trump's campaign staff was on Ashley Madison in 2015 when he got hacked trying to have an affair on his wife. And so, like, nobody's looking. Nobody's holding these fucking assholes accountable at all. And he came like this close. He was going to lose the election anyway. Now he's going to lose it by slightly more. Maybe drag Trump down to defeat North Carolina with him. And because nobody looked.
Right. But, you know, Mark, they have a pretty rock-solid defense so far cooked up over there on MAGA's side, how they're going to defend Robinson. If you want to see what their defense is so far, what they're working with, let's see our old buddy J.D. Vance here in this video, what he had to say when asked about the Mark Robinson stuff. Sorry, producer Laura, I sparked that on you. There we go.
His posts? I don't not believe him. I don't believe him. I just think that you have to let these things sometimes play out in the court of public opinion.
Do you believe him that those were not his posts?
Yeah, leadership. That's real leadership here. It's like, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't not believe him, but I also don't believe him. So there's that. It's like, all right.
It's not up to me.
Yeah.
I don't run for vice president, but things in politics are out there, and I don't have an opinion on them.
You got to watch them. Things are things, and those things sometimes they are in the media, and you gotta look, you gotta wait, you gotta see, and I just,
Dude,
right.
what do you? So sometimes things happen.
Right.
Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're
We all
not.
know that.
Anyway, see you later. I've been JD.
Yeah, right. All right. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. As a reminder, go to TreyCrowder.com. Come check out my upcoming tour dates. Come see me on the road. I sure would appreciate it. I'll be in Bristol and Atlanta this weekend, Bristol, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia this weekend. I got a bunch of other dates coming up in the future. Also, go to weeklyskews.com/more or go on Patreon and search for my name. Either way works. Sign up on our Patreon, $5 a month. You get 2 full-length bonus episodes a month like the Q&A we're going to do here in just a couple of days, and a bunch of other fun episodes too. And in fact, an entire archive of bonus Skew stuff you ain't never seen before now if you ain't on the Patreon. So please consider it. But most importantly, you keep showing up on Skews days, and we will too. We'll see you in 7 days. Love